Chris knows I have anxiety, and I didn't know I had anxiety for a long time. I know this sounds weird, but like, people, when I tell people I have anxiety, they're like, you don't seem like that. You seem so outgoing. But literally to walk into a room, I have to like psych myself up. To go and meet clients at a house, it freaks me out. So I am almost daily trying to get myself going again. So I was a little bit stressed about doing this today. So just to let you know. So I am not, the outline that people, that you see in KW and stuff isn't exactly me. I think that's part of how we do us, right? I think it's good to have our outlines and our basics and things that we can try to achieve and try to accomplish. I try every day, right? So that's the biggest thing. I think that is my number one common thread throughout my whole life is I've always tried. At whatever I've done, I've just kept going. I've owned my own businesses. I've done a lot of different things throughout my life. When I was coming into this industry, I was 47 years old, and I had done all these different things in my life, and I was like, I'm gonna be a realtor, really, And so I was starting a totally new career, and it was super scary. And so I got, just to give you a little bit of background about me, I started out on a team. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what realtor looked like at all. So I started out on a team. I did pretty well with that. I liked it. I was with that for a couple of years. And then I decided to go on as a single agent. And on a team, the last year I was on a team, I did 32 transactions. And I was like, okay, I think I could do this. Yeah. And then so I was like, oh, I could do this. So I decided to go as a single agent. And so last year was my first year as a single agent. And of course, Rona. And I'm like, awesome. This is awesome. So I had a goal of 25 units. And so come August, I had already hit that. And I was like, oh, I should change my goal. So I went up to 30. And then by the end of the year, I was at 35. So I was like, you can do whatever you set your mind to. Anyway, so that's part of what I was going to talk about. And then one of the things I was going to ask you guys to ask yourselves, I have a tendency, I have an addictive personality, and it's either black or white. Like I'm all in or I'm like all out, so I have to really make myself do things. So one of the things that I started doing, because I'm an addict, so I start to look. I am down. That's what I sound like. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just saying that I could work all the time, and I do work a lot, but I really realized that I have to find at least 1 or 2, 3 things that I need to do every day for me. So ask yourself and if you want to share, you can. What things do you do? Like just one thing that you do that you need to do for you every day that makes you feel accomplished. Or I can give you an example. Like I do daily affirmations. That's my thing. It doesn't have, you can look at it as business, I guess, but a lot of mine are, I am light, I am love, I am, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with success. It just has to be positive. And I look at myself in the mirror when I'm doing them, and I'm giving myself that energy. And so another one is I exercise. I try to exercise. I do my affirmations daily, but my exercise is kind of spotty. But I know personally, I feel so much better and I feel accomplished at the end of the day when I exercise. So what is one thing that you like to do? Put it in your schedule. So you do it every day. Do you guys have anything?
I like to cook dinner.
Nice.
And make sure the house is clean every day.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome.
Mine would be the same as yours. I like to work out and read my affirmations.
That's good.
I like to work out, but I want to read my affirmations. There's all these like mental things that I want to do for myself, and I need to actually start putting them in my schedule so they regularly happen. But I think that's an awesome thing that I want to start doing too.
For me, like I told you this, and I know I've told a lot of you guys this, but like I talked about it this morning, but kids is important to me. And you know, there are those moments where, of course, I love being with my kids and doing stuff, but never really purposeful about it. And you know, those things that slap you in the face and wake you up. And I remember one of my kids was like shocked I wasn't working on a Saturday, right? Or that I was actually there and like said some, you know, those things that kids can say is like, it's so good to have you playing a board game with us, Dad. I'm just like, oh. or you don't have your phone. I thought you needed your phone, you know? And so for me, it was identifying. I think an important part is identifying when you think of the feeling, what it is you're doing precisely. So when you were talking about making food, I can imagine like taking something, assembling something, and like giving something to someone else that they enjoy, right? And that feeling of accomplishment. For me, it's I broke down what activities I do with my kids. So we're purposeful about like I love mountain biking with them when I get to talk them through like something that's scary and then they do it and celebrating with them. So experiencing things with them is important to me.
For sure.
Yeah.
We just had that this weekend. We went to St. George and we left Thursday and all day Friday I was working and my grandkids and my kids with me. And I'm just like, hey, and so I had a little mini meltdown. I'll admit it, you know, because I have that, it seems like in real estate, you don't know when to shut it off. So that's why it's really important for you to be intentional and to be purposeful. And that was one thing that I still have a hard time with, but I have done much better, and that's time blocking. Because we just, our days can get away from us. Especially in the beginning, I was like a cell in the wind. You know, I mean, the wind, wherever the next call or the next this, and I was just all over the place, and I'd just be running myself ragged. So in the mornings, so I do my daily affirmations. I exercise, not all as much as I want to, but I exercise. And then I sit down from 9 to 12 and I do relationship building. People call it lead gen, or I call it relationship building. And there's certain things, you know, people do lead gen and they're calling or they're doing these things and then after that they do follow up. But I think it's just this block of time, I do both. So I'm calling, I'm texting, I'm reaching out and seeing how people are doing, I'm emailing. I just last week, I'm like, gosh, I haven't talked to Landon for a while, you know, and that's another thing I do. During that time, I don't always have things written down, or I'm not as structured as some people, but I start to think, I'm like, who haven't I talked to for a while? And also it'll just kind of pop in my head and I'll text. I text one of my past clients. I'm like, hey, how's it going, Landon? How's everything going? Are you getting all settled in? Or no, not settled in. His girlfriend moved in. Is she getting all settled in? And he's like, yeah, you know what? It's so weird. We were just talking, we might want to move. Can you let me know how much I could sell my house for? And I'm like, sure. I'm like, that's so cool. You know, it works. Lead gen works, you know? So it's just doing those things that we need, that you need to be intentional. So during that time, I focus on reaching out and talking to my SOI, or reaching out to new clients, or any referrals or anything like that. That's when I'm touching base with them. And then after that, I usually have a little break, like, cause I work from home. And so I am usually on my computer all the time. So I get up, I go for a walk, go, you know, do something that helps me just ground. And then after that, that's when I set up like appointments for showings. I set up writing up contracts. I'm not a big TV person. So even into the night, I will take my computer, and my husband watches TV. And so I'll be on my computer working while he's watching TV. We're in the same room. so that counts. We're still good, we're still bonding, right? So I've heard that one time. I heard that men that are bonding, they could be on a boat all day, out fishing, not saying one word to each other. And they have had the best day ever, and they bonded so much, you know, and and women were like, he hates me, we haven't
Yeah.
talked all day, you know? So it's just, I feel like we're in the same room, so we're good. But, so I do pop-bys in the afternoons. I take cookies or whatever it is I'm doing that time. I'll go to people's houses. With the Rona, I would do a lot of, like delivery. And that was my thing, you know, that's what I did a lot for home anniversaries, like home anniversaries. I would just send them crumble or, you know, something like that. And they were like, what? Or you send them pizza. It's just kind of a fun way to connect with them.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
So how do you figure out like what to do for Popeyes or, so is that like the Brian Buffini type side of things, or that doesn't make sense? So he uses that word Popeyes or that phrase, that's interesting. So
Yeah,
you're
like, I don't even know what that
That's
is.
awesome, I love it. So, so doing it, how do you qualify people for, do you have something like, I feel like I want to send crumble cookies, you talked about the home anniversary,
Mhm.
but can you describe that a little more, like how you started doing that?
So if I have had a referral that I do it that day. Like if I have a referral, that's when I do it. I'll go and do a referral. The home anniversaries, I do that. I do my top 50. I have the ones that I just kind of try to connect with. I don't always give a gift, or something, but I do, I'll go through my top 50.
Awesome.
I'll usually do that. And I will usually do 10 in a week for my top 50, and then I'll just rotate it. Sometimes it's a note, sometimes it's a text, sometimes it's a Popeye, sometimes it just depends on, like I said, I'm not as structured as some maybe, but I've got what works for me. And I mean, my business is doing pretty well. So anyway, and that's another thing. I'm a person that lives in my head. Like I'm always in my head. I'm like, I'm not as good as that person. I'm not doing it this way. I'm not doing it that way. And Chris is really good about this. You're doing you know, and that's what we just need to do. Just do us and be the best us that we can be. And people will love you for that. So, do you have any questions so far?
What?
So-
Go ahead.
For you said you pop by if you get a referral, so if someone, how does that happen? Someone referred you a client and you pop by the client they referred you's house?
To the person that referred me.
Okay,
Yep, I go and take them, usually I'll take them a bundt cake or I'll take them donut.
okay.
You know, I'll do like a little, I like little corny sayings, like, you know, don't expect nothing but the best from me. Like when I give cookies, I'm like, sweet, you're under contract, or, you know, whatever. That's when I do those too. Like, if someone goes under contract, I'll go and get their earnest money and I'll take them some cookies. Or now we've got Earnest. And so I just will go and take them just to say hi. And
I love that, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And I think you identify with your people better than others may have, if we're talking about comparisons where you know the point at which like emotion is highest, right? You know, when to show up with that. So it's a celebration to go under contract. It's not something to freak out about so much, right? You're reminding me, did you know Joe Gordon,
Oh,
when he
yeah,
was in
yeah.
office? Yeah.
Mhm.
So he made sure at the points of contact were when people needed him the most, or like he could make the biggest impression. And another one he used was when they were moving, like moving day. You didn't go there, you probably do something yourself. I'm wondering what your phrase is, like, nothing moves me, like.
Yeah.
But,
I just usually will give pizza or something.
yeah, so, yeah, that's great. You probably got that from you, but when they're moving, just having pizza delivered and say, you know, pizza's on me, have a great day. Can you imagine, like, if they have all their friends helping them move? Like, wow, that's pretty cool of your real estate agent to do that for you.
And so like sometimes I'll do a Kneaders basket or something because it's got bread and cookies and, you know, and there's a bunch of people going in and out. And so if you get a really nice big basket, then they can have stuff and they don't have to worry about supplying something for them, you know. Some people do boxes, some people, you know, there's lots of different things and you just have to figure out what clicks for you. My love language is food, obviously. So give me food and I'll be your best friend. You know, so
Me too.
I know. So I'm like, okay, so that's usually what I get is food or something like that, but.
This isn't about the food thing as much, but this is about, because as someone who does get in my head a lot too with social interactions, I was wondering, what are some ways that you connect with new people that you haven't met before and like get to know them and be an advisor, but also be a friend? If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I would say I ask a lot of questions. In a normal conversation, I talk a lot, but
Yeah,
when I'm with clients, I usually ask a lot of questions, just finding out what their motivation is.
Mhm.
You know, you end up, and what's fun with that, when you are talking with them about their kids or their
Yeah.
grandkids or this or that, like after I meet with them, I'll put in my notes, I'll take
Mhm.
notes and I'll be like, okay, so their dog's name is Jax. And so when they have their closing gift, Jax gets a bone,
Mhm.
you know, do you know what I mean? Or do you know what I mean? So you take these little things, like even my closing gifts, if they have kids, usually involves coloring books or race cars or stuff that they're like, oh, she really listened to me, you know? And it's not a fake thing. It's
Yeah.
just listening and really connecting with them. That's how you connect, is listening
Mhm.
and just taking it a step further, I guess.
So I know I'm putting you on the spot, but let's say if, I mean, you're at this function, at a concert, and maybe meet someone there, and then they say, oh, you're in real estate. How do you, or what do you think about this market? Like, what kind of questions do you ask, or how do you start conversations like that, if they're just don't know you?
Yeah, if they say what I think of this market, I'll say, well, I said, it's pretty crazy right now, but what do you think about this market? You know,
Yeah.
what do you think about this market?
Why do you
Yeah,
ask? Yeah,
Because you obviously are seeing something, so what do you see? You know, I just turn it around and ask them. Because usually they'll come up with their idea, and so and it's not to prove them right or wrong or anything, it's just to be able to have that conversation. It's just kind of asking a question with a question.
Yeah. Thanks.
I love that, and knowing motivation behind it.
Mhm. Yeah, because they're asking that question for a reason,
Mhm.
because they're like, well, I wonder what my house will sell for, or you know, and that will lead to, I wear my badge. I don't have it on. I wear it pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, standing in a line at a grocery store or just crumble cookie or wherever, it's always food. It's always-
I know you mentioned crumble a couple times.
Okay,
I'm
that's
like,
my favorite cookie
yeah,
place.
it's
I'm just
so
saying. But it's just, so I wear that all the time at
Mhm.
Costco. I've had lots of people. In fact, I just gave out my card to one of the guys, his name's Seth. He always, hey, Tana, how's it going? You know? And so finally he's like, so, you know, I'm thinking about selling my house. So I gave him my card. One of my favorite restaurants, Joy Luck, every
Mhm.
Christmas, because they're like my personal caterers. Like serious. And so I take them cookies. I take all their staff cookies for Christmas and leave my cards with them. And so I've had two of their, sold one, the owner's house, and then found a house for one of their,
Joy Luck and Apple.
the one in Sandy,
Oh, okay.
the shrimp, cashew shrimp. I went and get lunch.
So do you like go to Costco at the same time or like the grocery store at the same time? You just see the same people?
I go to Costco a lot, so I'm there a lot. So restaurants, Joy Luck and Cafe Rio, I take them cookies too. And Christmas time, I take them cookies, give them my cards. Cookies, I do cookies a lot just because they're quick and they're good and they're easy. They're just easy. But yeah, just places that I frequent, you end up building relationships because I ask questions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, how are you doing? How's your mom? You know, and they're like, oh, they're surprised that you remembered that their mom had hip surgery or whatever. And it's just taking down notes, because in this business, for me, there's stuff going on all the time. So if I don't write down notes, or if it's not in my schedule, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Okay, let's see.
I love, while you're looking at, I love hearing from you about just in your day to day. I mean, sometimes I think that there's that phrase, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, you know? And we don't realize there are people in front of us, even in the checkout line. You know, if I have my name tag on, or I just say hi, like, now, how's your day going? And they can feel that I'm really interested. Now, this goes into what we talked about, but just interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, you'd be surprised, like, if you go to the same dry cleaner, like other places, how often you see these individuals, but you never really bridge that connection piece. Like, we as human beings, we keep it so superficial, and we always think about what's next, and I've got to get to this next place rather than stopping and asking questions. Like you're saying, it's a good reminder for me.
Well, and I think too, with masks, it even makes it harder,
Mhm.
because really you don't know if someone's smiling or if they're sticking your tongue out yet, whatever. You don't know what they're doing. So especially at businesses, I look at their name tags and I try to address them by their name. I mean, of course, if you're just standing in line, most people don't have a name tag, but with the workers, I try to remember their name. And as I'm leaving, thanks so much, Michelle. It was awesome to see you again, or whatever. I go to Cafe Rio so often, I start to speak on the speaker. They're like, hi, Tana. Hi, you know, but I know them too. You know, it's Jaden and Michelle, and do you know what I mean? It's like, I know a lot about their lives too. So, it's just getting to know, it's just being personable.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Also, I would say I try to be consistent with, say a keyword. I try to do social media consistently. That's the big thing. And I try to do that at least a post a day, but I know you're probably supposed to do it more. But
Today's good.
Is
A
that
post
good?
a day is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. But I tried, and then I try to do it on every Tuesday. I do a take two at Tana. So you try to find also something that's catchy, you know, that can catch people's attention or they'll remember. I do a take two at Tana every Tuesday. I do that on Tuesdays more for my memory, just because I'm, oh, it's Tuesday, I gotta do my take two, you know?
What do you do on take two?
So I do like buying tips, seller tips. You know, I used to go up to 2 minutes. I have it so it can be up to 2 minutes, but that's kind of long. So I try to do 2 and under. You know, last week I think it was 30, 40 seconds, but it was just talking about my last listing and what I did to help that sell, you know, because I sold it for 304, or I listed it for 304.5. The market drove it up to 350. We're under contract for 350. So I talked about, I did my homework, gave the appraiser some comps that he may have not seen because they were under contract and they were going to happen this next week. I said, these are selling this week and they support my price. And so I kind of talked about that in my take two at Tana. And my clients got 350 was what it sold for, because the appraisal came in at 344 and they agreed to pay 12,000 above appraisal. So my clients got 350. So I talk about different things, our wins. We talk about wins. We talk about, I've talked about wire fraud, that it's on the rise. I've talked about just tips. Or
Is it like a video format where you like post the video?
Or is it Facebook Live? What do you do?
I think Facebook Live is cool. I am like too nervous to do Facebook Live. So so videos, I just do videos and I'll post the video
Yeah.
and it just. What did you ask me?
That was it.
Okay, okay, did I miss the question? So,
Yeah.
I asked if you did videos or Facebook Live.
yeah, I do Instagram and Facebook, and I started doing it on LinkedIn as well.
Cool.
Ooh, cool.
And then I think just finding your niche, finding the things that set you apart or that, because I truly believe we all have something to contribute
Mhm.
in this industry. There's so many realtors, right? Everybody knows a realtor. My brother's best friend's brother, everybody has a realtor or knows somebody. So I think just being you and just being true to who you are and acting on it and doing it. Because I think that's where we get in our heads and we're like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Like I used to punish myself. I'm like, no, if I didn't do my take 2 on Tuesday, I'm not doing it this week. But that's dumb. At least if I just do it, it's gonna get out there. I'm gonna have that exposure, so it's just do it. Am I taking up too much time?
No, you're perfect.
Okay, so one thing I talked to Chris a little bit about is we're talking about accountability. And I think that's what's really important in our days is to be accountable and and that's why having time blocking or to have, so I go throughout my day, I'll do my relationship building in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'll do my pop buys, my contracts, my showings, my this, the evenings, I will be accountable to myself and I'll write a list of things that I felt like I did well and that I accomplished that day. I'll write them down. And then I don't look at it like, well, I should have done this or this. No, I start thinking, okay, so who didn't I get to today? And so I try to be as positive as I can, and I'll start writing down, okay, these are the people I need to contact tomorrow, or these are the things I need to get done tomorrow. So that it's accountability to yourself.
You sleep better. I have to ask, do you
Oh my
sleep better? What? Can you write that down?
When I don't do it, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm in the middle of a contract, or I am like,
Oh, sorry.
or I pop up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't call so-and-so at work.
Yeah.
And I used to do it a lot in the beginning too, when I didn't have time blocking, I didn't have that nightly thing. I would wake up in the night and have a notebook, which I still kind of do, but I used to do it all the time. I'd write down somebody or how I forgot to call them back, or but now that I've done this at night, feels so much better. I sleep so much better. So another thing, I was telling Chris that I had this, I had a coach. I think that's a good thing too, a coach. I meet with a coach every week on Wednesdays at 12:30. I don't schedule anything. She won't take my call if I'm in my car. So I have run to a cafe and like set something up really quick, just because you need to focus. But I think I had a coach before, and he was talking to me, or I was telling him about how I get in my head and how it's hard to just make an appointment or to call, or calling was a hard thing for me. And so he said he had me do these challenges that I had to accomplish within a certain amount of time. One of them was singing in front of people in a crowded restaurant. Yeah, it was so even talking about it, I was like sweating a little bit, but it was so stressful. I had to ask, another one was to ask a stranger to pay for my lunch. So I'll tell you about that one was, and this is what the whole reason why I bring this up is we think negatively automatically. Most of us default to negative thinking. And so what he was trying to get us to do is to think of or to do something without worrying about what the other person was gonna think about, or, you know. So I was at, it took me about an hour to get up the courage, and I was at Shake Shack. And it was not very busy, so like every person I walk in, I'm like, okay, go. No. And so finally I went in the store, and I'm sitting here like stalking people. I'm like looking at all these different tables. I'm like, oh, they look nice, or she's busy with her kids, so I don't want to do that, you know. So I walk over to this table, and there's two guys talking. And don't ask me why I approached two guys, but it was scary. And I said, I was just wondering if you could pay for my lunch. And I have it videoed, and I can't remember exactly my verbiage, but he's like, why do you need me to pay for your lunch? And I'm like, okay. So I went into the whole thing about how I was doing this challenge.
Yeah.
But before, he actually said no,
Mhm.
before I told him what happened,
Mhm.
what I was doing. And I said, okay, so I'm doing this challenge, and this is what I had to do. And I said, it's overcoming fear. It's overcoming rejection, really. And that was, because that's a lot, right? When we're calling in the morning and we're making those calls, we're worried about rejection. And so the guy that was next to us, after I explained what I was doing, he goes, that is so funny. He goes, just so you know, my perspective. He's like, I see you walk up, you look well put together, you're approaching us, and he says, you're asking my friend to pay for your lunch. And I'm sitting here going, why is she doing that? You know, she looks like a professional or whatever. He goes, but I was thinking, how brave of her. That is so brave to ask somebody. And he goes, and that was before I knew what you were doing. And so it gave me a perspective of what people are really thinking. We don't know. We don't know. So I think it's just really good for us to push ourselves, step outside your box. Don't worry about rejection. You can't help if someone says no, but it doesn't hurt. It's scary for us, but it doesn't hurt us. It's okay. It just makes us stronger. So
Awesome story. What? Oh, man.
That's
So,
so
thank you. I
uncomfortable.
know, right? All of us are thinking, there's no way in hell I would ever do that. But what do you think changed in you where you stepped into something like that? Where you accepted a challenge like that? Because we've talked about this, and I'll say it, like, I mean, I want commitment. I don't want compliance, right? So people have told me that before, like, you gotta tell them to do it, you know, like every time. And I'm not gonna be that way. People have to be committed to it, or they're not going to. How did you get to a place where you had commitment enough where you were like, I'm gonna do it anyway? Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. Because it was just a coach, right? It was a coach's challenge. It's not like he's holding a gun to my head and I have to do it, right? I did it because I felt like I had to do it for me. So how bad do you want something? And it's up to you. No one else can make you do it. No one else can make that goal big enough for you. No one else can make that dream big enough for you. Nobody, just you. So it was self accountability. Like I felt like I had to do it, even though I didn't have to do it. But I held myself to that. I had to do it. I had to I laid down in the middle of a busy mall, and people are walking all around me, and I'm just sitting here going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you know. And
Did you video all that? Oh my
yeah, I put it on Facebook, I put it on Instagram and stuff. And the security guard, are you okay, ma'am? Yeah, just give me another 30 seconds. Like I had to do it for 2 minutes, you know. And he's like, okay, come on. It was fun. Now looking back at it, I'm like, I did that, you know. I can do hard things. I think it just is helping us to be better, stronger, you know. So how bad do you want something? You have to decide.
How was your singing in a restaurant?
Oh my gosh. It was, I think I did Zippity Doo Dah. I can't remember. It was such a blur, but yeah, and I was with a friend, and that's the thing too, is having somebody hold you accountable is so good, because I was telling her about the challenge, and that was my first one. And I was telling her about it, and she was, we'll just do it right now. I'm like, no. You guys know Coco. Do you guys know Coco?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course
Coco.
we say
I
that.
love Coco.
Yeah.
And she's like, just do it right now. I'm like, no, I'm not going. She's like, come on. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's good to have someone that helps you, that wants to hold you accountable, that will prod you along. But yeah, she was as red as I was, I think. She wasn't even doing it. It was funny. It's fun. I don't know, that's, you guys have any other questions?
What do you have to say to that individual that, and we all have days, right? Like I've heard those things, do what you're passionate about, and never work a day in your life. I think that's BS. Like you're gonna work, there's days you don't feel like doing it. What do you think it is about you? And you talked about you have to do it, it's a must, but when you talk about these things, I haven't met a lot of people that have done those same levels of accountability and accepted it and did it. How did you attach meaning to those things before you did it? Or what did your coach say where you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this? Was it more of feeling like this isn't bigger than me? Is it more of seeing that you can do something and make it out alive? Or just complete trust in your coach? Or like, do you know what I'm getting at? What is it about maybe you and those specific instances where it became a must, where you could attach, let me put it this way. If lead generating or the rejection side of things, or making calls is something that I just can't step into doing. We know how it works. Like if I don't do it one day, the next day it's that much harder. If I don't do it the next day, momentum builds and it's in the other direction and it's that much harder. What would you say to that person if you were the coach to step into doing that and assign meaning to it, where it becomes a must? What changed in you where it became a must?
I think my goal and my dream is bigger than all of that.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like I want it so bad.
Mm.
And because I want it so bad, I'm gonna do what it takes to get there.
Mm.
So when my coach, that coach at the time, when he said that, I was like, okay, this is something inside of me that I have a problem with and I want to overcome it. I've brought it to him to help me overcome. So this is his solution for that. Am I just gonna be an asshole and just keep on going? And, you know, I said ask, right? Ask, you know, am I just gonna ask and not do? And so that's, and I still have a problem with doing that. I'm a procrastinator, but I think, especially when it comes to stuff that doesn't pertain to my goal. And so I think that find your why, find your dream, find your goal, whatever is gonna drive you the most. And you can't, then when a coach says something, you're like, okay, because you make it not very, I don't know, I'm self-accountable. And so I hold myself, I'm harder on myself than anybody, right? And so I hold myself to a higher standard than anybody probably does. And so because of that, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it, you know? It took me a while, but I did it, you know? But, and plus I like to feel the other side of hard. I like that feeling. I like that.
Like once you overcome it.
Yes, I love that accomplishment and I look back and go, I did that. That is so cool. You know, it just even thinking about what I did, I still am like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. You know, but it's something that I still feel. And so that it's find your motivation. You gotta feel it. What?
You know,
Did she
what
say
those challenges? That means you should do them. That's what that means. Out doing 30, so people can see what it looks like, doing 35 transactions outside, you talked about in your morning, what times do you do it? 9?
9 to 12.
Okay, and you knew that like right away, right? So outside of your morning follow-ups, like, meeting new people, having them on the Popeyes, things like that. Outside of lead generation and following up, what's your other activity that you do the most, you think, in your business? Is it appointments? Is it managing transactions? Is it?
I would say appointments
Yeah.
is probably my biggest thing, because and then appointments, it would be contracts, or because, I mean, that leads, the more appointments you have, you're writing contracts, I also, usually in the evening, if I didn't win a contract, which I am getting really good at those, by the way. So be positive about yourself. And, if you find that you're like, I'm really good at contracts, how do I become better? Or if I'm not good, how do I become better at contracts? Like, I will study what I did. I'll ask the listing agent, I'll be like, what did I lose out on? What was the defining factor? And it was kind of cool, because there was a guy that was, he's a VA, which is a little bit harder to get a contract accepted. We were on our 4th time, and the other 3, we're in the top two. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It was making me so mad. So finally, though, we finally got him under contract, and it was because I took a little bit of other ones that I'd done, and I learned, and that's what I do at night too. I'll learn from what I've done before. I also, as a listing agent, you get a lot of contracts that come in, and I would look at theirs, how they wrote them, and I'd be like, even ones that didn't win the offer, I'm like, oh, I love this part of their addendum. That verbiage was so good, and so now I take that and I put that in my addendum. So it's just, how are you making your craft better? Then that's what I do at night too. I know that's weird. I work a lot. I do. It's true.
Yeah, looks like we have a couple more questions.
Oh, yeah, you can go first.
So I guess one of my questions is, instead of winning clients, I have a lot of conversations and appointments. That's why I'm trying to get better at closing a deal. And what is your method for that? Like, do you do the CMA and then buy them pizza or something?
Crumbles on way.
Yeah. Actually, at my listing appointments, I do take a little gift.
Yeah.
Just not something huge or anything, but I just, if it was like, I just did a listing appointment for 1.3, and I was like, what do you give somebody else? Like, okay, so I just did a little basket. There's a husband and a wife. I just did a little meter basket. It was, I think, $24, I think. And it was like a housewarming gift, kind of, and so it kind of broke the ice a little bit. And then I do take a CMA with me. I don't do it as the very first thing. I usually will go and talk to them. I'm not very much into listings, but I am a listing agent, and that is one of my affirmations. So the ones that I have done, and Chris has helped me with some listings too. I ask them, we sit first. I go and we sit at the table, and I just ask them, like, let me make sure that I understand what your motivation is. What's your time frame? And I have things written down. I don't have them right in front of me, but so you're asking them questions, so you develop that relationship. And then I say, would you like to show me your home? Depending on the person, because you get to read people. Like, some people, they're like, you can tell they're not really wanting to. I'll say, okay, I'm going to go walk through your home like a buyer would, through buyer's eyes. And then let's regroup. We'll get back together and we'll go over some things. It's just developing, it's a relationship. And that's why I call it relationship building instead of lead gen, because it's about relationships. It's about people getting to trust you and to know you, and you know them. I don't know if that helps.
That helps.
Mhm.
Yeah, my question is, honestly similar to Connor's, but more in terms of also like having conversations with clients or potential clients, like, since of course you are the advisor, but sometimes it's hard, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but being a newer agent, like, you feel like, you know, I know things, but I don't, it's hard to put yourself in that advisor hat, yeah, like, and be trying to build a relationship with them and also consult them and give them professional advice. I was wondering if you have tips for that, like ways of delivery and things like that.
So in the beginning, it was, I totally remember feeling this. I'm not
Yeah.
even an agent very
Yeah.
long. So I mean, it's just right
Yeah.
there. So I would get so nervous, and I will be honest, in the beginning, I tried to be all-knowing, the professional, like,
Yeah.
you know, and that did not work for me. It wasn't me. And so what I started to do is I'd say, no, I'm not quite sure. I'm like, I remember, you know, or I'll recall, like I'll say, I remember this, but let me make sure. And it's okay to say, I'll get back with you on that. Let me get back with you. That was really helpful for me,
Yeah.
because I was just like, I don't want to say the wrong answer and then come back and go, oh, you know, so I started doing that a lot. And I think a big thing is just being you. Just be you. And because if you are in a conversation with somebody, you're not constantly thinking about how you're going to come across. So just have a conversation, just be you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's true, like you can't, when you're trying to be something you're not, right? It's tough. I think, I'm trying to remember for me, I think it's where my mind was, like and I don't know how it is for you exactly, for a lot of you guys, but I knew it was gonna be very easy to focus on the things I didn't know, right? And it was gonna be very easy to think of all the things I didn't do, like other people were doing. But I guess two things for me, I identified what concerns they might have, right? And then I prepared beforehand, like what I'm gonna say in response to that.
Yeah.
And then second, like know, and this goes into what Tana was saying, know what it is that's about you that you're good at. And that can come down to the facts. It can be as simple as, I know I communicate better than other people do. I know I'm gonna work harder than other people you meet with. I know I'm gonna be able to get your home sold, or I know I'm gonna be able to find a property where others can't, rather than wondering about all the things I didn't know that others knew. Does that make sense? And maybe it was true, maybe it was not, but it's what I believed, and that level of certainty it carries through. There are agents out there that have been in the business forever. And you guys, a lot of you guys know this already. Like, Jake, you had a situation where you were showing a home for someone and they talked about their agent, right, that they're working with. And maybe this is an agent that's been in the business for a very long period of time. Their person was like, Jake, you are like a ray of sunshine. Like, you are the best agent I've ever met with. Like, let's think about this. Let's think about this. Like, that person has been in the business a long time, but that person may have more business. Now, why is that? It's because that person feels that they are the best for the job, even though in this case, it may not be true. So it's whatever really we believe deep down. I remember I was like, man, I hope they don't ask me how many transactions I've done. And of course it comes up. How many transactions have you done? And just in that moment, I believe like, I had that level of certainty that I could help them, where I came back with like, hey, I agreed to meet with you because the lender said you are highly qualified. And I typically don't take a lot of buyers. I don't have any buyers, right? But I said, I was like, I agreed to do this, and I went right into my action. This is what I do, and this is why I agreed to work with you. And it almost became me qualifying them to work with me, even though, let's face it, like, I had no clue what I was doing. So with those same 4 buyers, I'm talking too much already, those same 4 buyers, you know what I did? I watched HGTV like working with first time buyers or some show. And at the end, there's like 3 columns and there's like X out 2 of the homes. Do you guys know the one I'm talking
Yeah.
about? And then they choose the last one. That's what I did. But I was certain about it. So at the end of viewing 3 properties, I was like, which is it? Which are you doing? That's, and I was certain, like, and they're like, oh, can we view that first townhome again? I'm like, okay, let's go. And then, like, we look at them like, so are you putting in an offer on this one? Is this the one? And they're like, yeah. And then we put in an offer and, but I had that level of certainty that was like pretty incorrect about some of these things, right? I remember Giovanni, actually, I was at the printer. I was printing stuff off and somehow it came, I was like, wait, you what again? You did what? And then that's where I was like, that's not what you do. But having your level of certainty, write down what it is about you that's gonna bring it, and you need to know that going into it.
And be
It's in the way you
confident
say
in that, and be confident in that, because that shows, it shows, confidence is so appealing. It really is, goes a long way.
I went to a class in Utah County for CE credits a year or something ago. And the guy who, he says that he was Lehigh's, only realtor. And he was like, talking about how whenever he takes his clients on buyer appointments, lets them see 2 houses. And he always makes them pick between the 2 houses. I was like, what the heck? That obviously probably isn't happening today, but.
Good, like, again, it goes back to that person.
So maybe you were on
Those
something.
Yeah.
those are the conversations I need. Like, those ones are hard, because it's like a mental game too, of challenging yourself to behave that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
getting out of your
exactly.
head.
Yeah, I think I just need to like script it really well, so it just comes out too, as opposed to like, am I gonna say this now? Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks, Tina, that was amazing. What do you think? Isn't it awesome? Excuse me, sorry. So, I know a couple things for me that I definitely picked up. One, not letting opportunities slip by when I'm thinking about, oh, I've got to talk to these many people. Like, I'll say it right now, Elizabeth isn't on anymore. Who went door knocking when we went to Zupa's before? Do you guys
Yeah,
remember that? Do you know what? Just so you know, I'm human. Like, of course, you guys know that. You see stuff I mess up with all the time. But I'm thinking about all these other individuals I'm talking to, and remember there was like a worker there. It's like I'm taking the exam and stuff, right? So what I'm learning is don't be so focused on like this one thing in the business. Have your focus be, am I talking to anyone and everyone around me? Am I building connections? I love that you talked about taking notes. Whether it's on a legal pad, commands, a spreadsheet, have I identified things that are important to them, where when I talk to them again, and I have a reason to talk to them, I say like, how's Timmy doing in T-ball? Like, what's going on with the dog, and things like that. Make people feel important. Another thing that I pulled from that is like, find hard things to do. And when that thing presents itself, I'm gonna throw this out there. So we're doing a listing presentation role play that I rolled out to you guys. I had like one person that reached out to me right away. Is like, I'm taking the 6 o'clock spot. So like, if you think that like getting better on the listing presentation is important, why not be the first one in and say, I'm doing a listing presentation, whether I have it or not. At least I'm gonna do it with someone, and then I'm gonna get feedback from people, right? So, but yeah, thank you. That was awesome. So we got today, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Now you created the expectation. Everyone's gonna see you and be like,